Every manipulation begins the same way, not with a threat, but with a story. A story designed to make you doubt what you see, trade your pace for their urgency, and confuse love with loyalty. You know that feeling when you walk away from a conversation and something feels off, but you can't quite explain why. That's not overthinking. That's a signal. Manipulation isn't magic, it's math. It's a pattern that repeats through people, through centuries, through every system where power hides inside affection. And until you can name the pattern, you can't stop it. There are 5 blueprints that appear again and again, 5 scripts written to pull your strings while making you believe you're the one holding them. In the next 2 hours, we're going to expose those blueprints. Gaslighting, love bombing, negging, and guilt hooks. And we're going to do it with one goal: education and self-protection. If any of what you hear tonight feels familiar or unsafe, pause. Reach out to local emergency services or a domestic violence hotline in your country. This isn't a performance. Your safety is the only win condition. So here's the question that brought you here. Why do intelligent, self-aware people still get manipulated? Because manipulation doesn't attack your logic. It hijacks your empathy. It turns your strengths into entry points. Quick pulse check. How often do you leave a conversation feeling foggy, doubting what just happened? Once a week? Every day? That fog isn't weakness, it's evidence. By the end of this program, you'll see the lines hidden inside that haze. Every century gave these blueprints a new mask. In the 1940s, they called it gaslight. In love stories, it's called passion. In business, it's called persuasion. But beneath the words, same gears, same math. Where empathy is currency, manipulators counterfeit it. Where love is magnet, they overcharge it. Where guilt is sacred, they forge a halo of barbed wire. This isn't about villains in dark rooms. It's about subtle architecture, phrases, tones, habits that shape your behavior while pretending to protect you. Once you can see the architecture, you can walk out the door. Here's your map. We'll begin with the foundations and taxonomy, how manipulation builds its frame. Then we'll decode the microtells and language patterns, what they say versus what they do. We'll walk through real-world case studies, workplace, dating, and family. We'll craft defense protocols and boundary scripts you can speak out loud today. And we'll close with reflective exercises and red flag checklists to keep your compass true. No dramatics, just strategy. Let's take back the map. 5 blueprints, 5 defenses. 1 goal, clarity. Welcome to Dark Psych Unmasked, where we expose the hidden mechanics of control, one pattern at a time. If you find power in understanding what was once invisible, subscribe now and stay one step ahead of manipulation. Chapter 1. Foundation and Taxonomy. Take a breath and picture a chessboard. Most games don't start with fireworks. They start with quiet, repeatable openings. Manipulation works the same way. What looks like 100 different tricks usually compresses into a handful of designs, blueprints, that get reused across contexts and centuries. If you can recognize the openings, you can choose your next move instead of getting dragged into someone else. In this chapter, we're going to name the gears, not to scare you, but to give you the relief that comes when confusion turns into a map. Think of every manipulative exchange as a machine with 3 levers: information, emotion, and resources. The information lever hides, distorts, or floods the facts so that truth becomes slippery, messages disappear, promises blur, the timeline gets fuzzy. The emotional lever rides what I'll call fog, fear, obligation, and guilt, because when your nervous system is fogged, you'll sign away boundaries just to get visibility back. And the resource lever pushes time, money, status, or isolation, because when your calendar, wallet, or reputation is on the line, you'll pay in compliance to make pressure stop. You don't need to memorize this. Keep it simple. If the facts are hard to verify, if your feelings are being used to hurt you, or if your resources are being squeezed, you're probably not in a fair conversation. Before we label the blueprints, let's draw two bright lines. Conflict is not manipulation. Two people can disagree intensely and still honor reality, consent, and dignity. Influence is not automatically manipulation either. It becomes manipulation when your agency is quietly removed, when consent is shaped without your awareness, when the other party relies on deception, coercion, or your confusion as the win condition. If a conversation makes reality smaller, shrinks your choices, and punishes you for noticing, that's not influence, it's capture. Now for the 5 blueprints. Imagine 5 icons you can carry in your pocket. A broken compass, a Trojan horse covered in roses, a sugar-coated dagger, a mirror maze, and a barbed halo. These are shorthand. They remind you what's happening without needing a textbook in your head. Each blueprint has an objective, a common sound, and a typical escalation path. They often stack. One invites the next, so spotting the first move matters. Gaslighting is the broken compass. It's the systematic replacement of your memory and perception with theirs, until the only way to know what is real is to consult the very person who keeps moving reality. It rarely starts with theatrical accusations. It starts with soft edits. You recall a Tuesday conversation. They chuckle and say it was Wednesday. You bring up an agreement. They say you misunderstood the vibe. You quote their words. They pivot to your tone. Over time, the edits pile up, and the brain, preferring coherence over conflict, starts to outsource certainty. The goal isn't merely to win an argument. It's to become your default reference point. That's why you'll hear lines like, "That never happened." "You're overthinking." "Everyone knows I'm right about this." Or, "The slippery." We all remember it differently, which sounds generous while it pulls the floorboards. Historically, the name comes from a play and film where a husband dims the gaslights and insists his wife is imagining it. Philosophically, it's Plato's cave in domestic form, shadows on a wall sold as the sun. The escalation path is simple. Dispute a detail, induce doubt, then install dependence. What makes gaslighting so effective is not a single lie, but the drip that reclassifies your accuracy as a liability. If you notice that you apologize for remembering, or you keep checking your reality against someone who punishes you for it, the compass is being touched. Love bombing is the Trojan horse with roses. It isn't love, it's velocity masquerading as destiny. The blueprint overwhelms you with attention, gifts, future promises, and mirroring to create a fast bond that outruns verification. The first date becomes a weekend trip. The first week becomes, "I've never felt this way." Your phone blooms with constant affirmation, knitted together with invitations to decide quickly. It feels like being seen, and some of it may be sincere, which is why it's so potent. But the engine underneath is pace pressure. Why the rush? Because time introduces witnesses, patterns, and your full judgment. Pace pressure is a way to leapfrog those safety rails. The objective isn't closeness, it's control over tempo, which later becomes control over concessions. When the horse is inside the walls, the tone usually shifts. The day you say no to a fast step is the day the flattery cools and the subtle punishments begin. If you have a history of feeling unchosen, love bombing is engineered to feel like oxygen. A useful question to hold is, would this level of certainty make sense if nothing else about our lives changed? If your stomach wants to slow down and your phone makes it hard to, that's the horse rolling in. Negging is the sugar-coated dagger. It's not teasing. It's controlled injury disguised as honesty, humor, or help. The compliment has a barb that makes you chase approval to remove the sting. You're pretty for your age. You'd be hot if you changed your hair. You're smart, but you talk too much. Relax. It was a joke. Wow, sensitive much. The content is an insult. The wrapper is plausible deniability. The objective is insecurity, because insecure people work to earn back the very person who injured them. That is the sale. The escalation path is also predictable. A small jab to test your threshold, then a pattern of jabs calibrated to your soft spots. When you call it out, the blueprint flips to ridicule or reversal. You can't take a joke, so that defending yourself becomes the offense. This is why arguing the accuracy of the dig rarely helps. You end up litigating whether you're too sensitive instead of naming what it is, a withdrawal of respect dressed as wit. Healthy teasing lands on a foundation of care and adjusts when you say stop. Negging ignores the stop and blames you for bleeding. Darvo is the mirror maze. Deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It's a crisis containment blueprint, most often deployed when you bring a specific harm to the table. You think you're filing a report. You're actually entering a funhouse where every path bends accountability back onto you. You say, "You didn't send the file." The reply, "That never happened." Deny. You stay with the file. They pivot to your tone or character. "You're being aggressive. You always do this." Attack. You try to return to the issue. They claim that your confrontation is the real harm. You feel unsafe. "You're targeting me." Reverse. The objective is to make the cost of bringing up harm higher than the harm itself. It works because most of us don't want to be cruel or unfair. If someone frames us as the abuser for saying "ouch," we consider apologizing for bleeding. The maze multiplies with allies too. Suddenly, people are saying you're the problem. The exits exist, but they require a different rhythm than the one you're being dragged into. Keep the conversation single issue. Move to traceable channels. Refuse the detour into character court. We'll practice that in the defense chapter. For now, memorize the sequence so the mirrors don't surprise you. Guilt hooks are the barbed halo. They weaponize the best parts of you, your conscience, gratitude, loyalty, and desire to belong. The message is simple. Good people comply. The packaging is familiar. After all I've done for you, if you loved me, you would. Family means you show up. Real friends don't say no. There is nothing wrong with reciprocity or sacrifice. Relationships run on both. The difference is that a guilt hook converts love into leverage, then charges interest. It cashes a check you didn't write. When you hesitate, the hook snags. You're ungrateful, cold, selfish, disloyal. The objective is obedience without debate. This blueprint often arrives in families, communities, and workplaces with thick moral language, which is why it can be hard to see. You'll feel bad even as you comply, and then you'll feel bad for feeling bad. The trick here is to notice the invoice. Was a favor freely given now being tallied as debt? Was a value invoked without your consent to force a behavior? Healthy obligation invites you to the table and negotiates timing and capacity. Guilt hooks tell you your worth is on trial. If no is equated with betrayal, you're not being asked. You're being conscripted. Let's name how these 5 often stack, because you'll rarely see them alone. Lover bombing primes the bond and pace. Negging calibrates your insecurities and normalizes small harm in the name of honesty. When you name a hurt, Darvo spins the room until you're the offender. When you try to slow down or set a boundary, guilt hooks tug on your loyalty. And when you keep notes or ask for specifics, gaslighting erases the record and paints your accuracy as antagonism. Not every person who does one of these is a monster. People copy tactics they've seen work. The point isn't to diagnose, it's to detect. Once you can say, "This is the stack," you can step sideways out of the loop. There's a rhythm to all manipulation. Approach, testing, consolidation, escalation, maintenance. In the approach phase, the blueprint hooks you through novelty, flattery, authority, or shared enemy. A rush of, "Finally, someone gets me." Testing follows quickly. A small boundary is nudged, a minor insult is floated, a timeline is rushed, a memory is disputed. Your response calibrates the dosage. Consolidation locks in the rules. Inside jokes that hide contempt, private channels that reduce outside view, expectations that become how we do things. Escalation punishes dissent. Silent treatments, public shaming, withheld access, withheld affection. Maintenance alternates sugar and sting so that you stay engaged negotiating the next moment. If this sounds bleak, remember, most of this falls apart the second you can see it. These blueprints are not magic. They need your confusion to thrive. You might be wondering how to separate a mistake from a pattern. A single joke that lands wrong, an honest misremembering of a date, enthusiasm early in dating. These happen in good faith relationships. What marks a blueprint is pattern math. Does feedback change the behavior, or do you get told that feedback is the problem? Are the errors symmetric, or do they always advantage the same person? Does the temperature drop when you slow down, say no, or ask for receipts? Do you leave interactions clearer or foggier? A healthy partner or colleague adjusts when they see you flinch. A manipulator blames the flinch. Let's weave the icons back into your memory. The broken compass asks, whose map are we using? If you keep using someone else's map and getting lost, you're not forgetful, you're being detoured. The Trojan horse with roses asks, why the rush? If the best thing about an offer is the speed, pause. Time is a background check. The sugar-coated dagger asks, did that compliment draw blood? If your worth feels a half step lower after a conversation, consider whether you were being sold the bandage. The mirror maze asks, what is the single issue? If everything keeps becoming your fault whenever you name harm, you are not clumsy. You're in a maze designed to send you back to the entrance. The barbed halo asks, whose values are being quoted, and to what end? If love and duty are invoked to erase your choice, it isn't sacred, it's a tool. Because we'll build defense later, I won't train you in scripts yet, but I will plant one mental habit here. Narrate to yourself in clean nouns and verbs. A claim was made. A receipt was asked for. The topic changed to my tone. An invitation was extended. Time pressure was added. I was praised for ignoring my own pace. The reason to narrate like this is simple. The more specific your language becomes, the less the blueprint can fog you. Write down phrases you hear repeatedly and the behaviors that follow. Let your notes become a mirror that doesn't distort. That notebook is not a courtroom exhibit. It is a reality anchor for your nervous system. One more distinction will save you hours of debate. The difference between intent and effect. You can empathize with someone's stress and still refuse their pattern. You can believe they didn't mean to hurt you and still protect your boundary. Manipulation argues that only intent matters. I was just trying to help. I was only joking. I did this because I care. Healthy dynamics care about both. This hurt you. I won't do it again. I see the pattern. Let's set a rule. If every conversation about harm gets redirected to whether you've unfairly judged their heart, you will never get to change the behavior. I also want to degrammaticize one myth, that you can logic your way out of someone else's blueprint by presenting the perfect argument. Blueprints are not debates to be won. They are environments to be left or rules to be changed. Arguing at length inside a mirror maze is how you get dizzy. Negotiating your self-worth with a sugar-coated dagger in your back is how you bleed out slowly. If you hear yourself crafting an essay to justify a basic boundary, you are probably performing for a court that has already ruled against you. At this point, you might be cataloging people in your life, and that's natural, but stay with behaviors. Label the move, not the person. The minute you decide someone is all good or all bad, you'll either excuse harm or ignore repair. Blueprints are verbs. People are nouns. Keep those separate so that you retain the ability to leave a pattern or let someone grow without rewriting history. If you have been in a long season of these patterns, You may feel the urge to fix everything alone. Please don't. Manipulation thrives in isolation. Bring one trusted witness into your process, a friend, a mentor, a counselor, someone who can reflect back reality without hijacking your choices. Secrecy is a tactic, not a virtue. When you loop someone in, the spell thins. I'll end this chapter with a short mental rehearsal. Picture yourself in a conversation where your memory is dismissed. Instead of arguing the entire past, you take a breath and say to yourself, "Broken compass," and you ask for a written follow-up. Picture a rush of affection and plans that outpace your ability to think. You quietly name it, Trojan horse, and you slow the tempo by days, not minutes. Picture a backhanded comment wrapped in a smile. You feel the sting, silently tag it, dagger, and you decide whether this is a person who adjusts, not whether you're allowed to feel. Picture a confrontation that turns you into the offender. You exhale, say mirror maze, and hold one issue like a lighthouse. Picture a beloved voice invoking duty to extract a yes you don't have. You straighten your spine, whisper, barbed halo, and return to your values, not their verdict. Now you have a taxonomy that isn't theoretical, it is portable. You don't have to memorize anything beyond 5 images and 3 levers. You don't have to diagnose people or predict the future. You only have to recognize the opening and keep your map. In the next chapter, we'll zoom in on the microtells, the small language patterns and nonverbal cues that reveal which blueprint is running in real time. For now, remember this. Where confusion once lived, categories now live, and categories are the beginning of choice. Chapter 2, Microtells and Language Patterns. You are about to learn a new kind of listening, the kind that watches what words try to do, not just what they say. Most manipulation doesn't announce itself. It hums in the microtells, the way a sentence is shaped, how a laugh arrives half a second after a sting, the speed of a request, the way a promise expands while the behavior shrinks. Think of this chapter as learning to read subtitles beneath the dialogue. When you can see the subtitles, you stop arguing with the script and start responding to the pattern. Begin with the simplest instrument you own, the say-do gap. Hold any interaction up to this light and ask, what was said and what was done? If someone says, "I want transparency," and then moves important conversations to private channels, the gap is your data. If they say, "I don't like drama," and yet every boundary conversation explodes, the gap is your data. You don't need to assign motives. Let the gap speak. A clean relationship has small, repairable gaps and gets curious when you notice them. A manipulative dynamic insists the gap is your imagination. Verbal tells are the easiest to capture because they leave footprints. Listen for absolutes that shrink reality. Always, never, everyone, no one. These words flatten nuance on purpose, because nuance makes room for your perspective. You always forget, no one else has a problem with me. Everyone thinks I'm right. Each turns disagreement into an outlier you must defend. Be alert for borrowed authority. People are saying, experts agree, we all know. If you ask, which people, which experts, what exactly do we know? And the answer dissolves. The authority wasn't there to inform, it was there to pressure. Notice forced binaries. Are you with me or against me? When the only options handed to you are 2 extremes, the missing third option, neither, I'm choosing a pause, is often the healthiest. Another verbal tell hides in humor. A backhanded comment arrives with a grin. The moment you name the sting, the grin becomes the defense. Relax, it was a joke, is not a joke. It's a permission slip. Good faith teasing lands on a base layer of care and adjusts when you say, that didn't feel good. Negging does not adjust, it calibrates. Listen for the compliment that contains a hook. You're pretty for your age. You'd be great if you'd lose 5 pounds. You're smart, but you talk too much. The hook invites you to earn the full compliment by changing yourself. The longer you bargain for a cleaner version of the praise, the more power the hook has. Pay attention to the verbs used to rewrite your memory. Gaslighting doesn't always sound like you're crazy. It often sounds like you misheard, you misremembered, you took it the wrong way. You took it the wrong way. That's not what I meant. We all remember it differently. These lines convert a concrete event into vapor. Watch for subtle upgrades. A maybe becomes a definitely. A preference becomes a rule. A question becomes an accusation you supposedly made. If the story keeps editing itself mid-conversation and the edits always favor the other person, the edit is the tell. When you ask for specifics, what exactly did I say? When? In front of whom? And the specifics blur, you have your answer. Paralinguistic tells live in tone, tempo, volume, and rhythm. Some people run a side-lasting cadence, a soft exhale, a playful chuckle, then a line that cuts. The laugh invites you to pretend the cut didn't cut. Some speed up when you ask for time to think, because urgency smothers your discernment. Others go quiet and stretch the silence until you fill it with concessions. Volume can act as a foghorn that drowns the issue. A sudden whisper can be weaponized too, a performative calm that paints you as the only heated one. When the tempo spikes the moment you say no. When interruptions multiply as you approach a point. When words trip and multiply the second you ask for receipts. Your nervous system is already reading the music. Trust it. Nonverbal tells are the choreography of respect. After you decline a request, watch what happens to warmth. Does eye contact vanish? Does the smile switch off? Does the posture close? Do the hands move to block your exit? Does the person hover behind you while you type? Proximity can be used as pressure. So can the display of resources. Spreading papers across your desk to colonize space, placing hands on a chair you're about to sit in, standing in doorways, angling the body so you must shift to keep personal distance. These seem small. They add up. In safe company, your no does not cause the room to tilt. Digital tells are modern pressure valves. A late-at-night flood of messages creates a sense that you owe a reply when you wake. The unsent feature can erase volatile lines after they've landed, leaving you with a feeling and no proof. Group chats can be used to recruit witnesses mid-argument so that your refusal becomes a public performance. Calendar invitations arrive under the guise of efficiency but function like obligations. You decline, and a disappointed follow-up lands within minutes. Read receipts, get activated or deactivated to induce anxiety. You saw it, and didn't answer. Or you never saw it. I told you. When digital tools generate urgency without necessity, the tool is the tell. Topic drift is a central manipulative maneuver. You bring a single issue. The conversation slides everywhere else. You say, the invoice wasn't sent, and suddenly you're debating your tone, your work ethic, your past mistakes, your supposed vendetta against the team. This is Darvel warming up. Deny the specific, attack your character, reverse the roles. You can hear the drift in the pivot words. Actually, the real problem is, everyone knows, since we're being honest, followed by a grocery list of your faults. If you leave the conversation defending your personality instead of addressing the original issue, the drift worked. Detection in real time sounds like, I'm staying with the invoice. If we need a separate conversation about tone, we can schedule it. Pace pressure is its own language. Why wait? If you were serious, we'd do it now. Opportunities don't come twice. Decide before dinner. The content varies. The message is the same. Your speed belongs to me. Love bombing runs on pace because speed outruns verification. The microtell is the insistence that questions equal betrayal. When you say, I need a day, and the temperature drops, the temperature is speaking. If someone honors your pace, they want you. If they attack your pace, they want your compliance. Listen for moral vocabulary used as a wrench rather than a compass. Family, loyalty, respect, gratitude, honor, submission, forgiveness. None of these are bad words. They become tells when they appear only at the moment you assert a boundary. After all I've done for you, if you loved me, you would. A good child shows up. Real friends don't say no. Forgive and forget. Don't make me ask twice. Healthy obligation allows negotiation. Guilt hooks erase negotiation by implying that refusal equals moral failure. When love and duty are invoked to erase choice, the invocation, not your resistance, is the problem. Burden shifting has a verbal fingerprint. If you raise a concrete concern and are immediately handed the job of comforting the person you've confronted, the burden just moved. I can't believe you think I'd hurt you. You're making me anxious. I'm shaking right now. I can't have this conversation with your tone. Sometimes emotions genuinely rise, and care is called for. Other times, dysregulation appears only when accountability does. The tell is consistency. If distress shows up exactly when a standard is applied and disappears once the standard is dropped, distress is the lever. Double binds are contradictions framed as expectations you must meet simultaneously. Be spontaneous right now. Be honest, but don't say anything that upsets me. Own your feelings, but don't burden me. Take initiative, but don't overstep. The purpose of a double bind is to keep you negotiating yourself rather than negotiating the relationship. If you feel like every move you make proves a new flaw, you're not clumsy. You are in a no-win game. The detection phrase is internal. Two rules contradict. I won't grade myself against both. Future effecting has a glossy tone. The words are candy. Woo. Always. Forever. In a year. Once we, paired with grand visions that cost the speaker nothing today, will travel the world. I'll put you on my team. You'll never worry again. We're meant to be. The micro-tell is that the present moment doesn't change. They promise a future that requires no present proof. When you ask, what happens this week? And the story floats upward to the horizon again, you're in a promise that feeds on distance. Watch for gatekeeping language masquerading as standards. I can't talk to you when you're emotional. Come back when you're calm. Use a better tone. Say it the right way. In healthy dynamics, it's okay to set time and tone. In manipulative ones, the standard is used to avoid substance. Note whether the goalpost moves. If every time you meet the requested tone, content is still dodged, tone was never the point. If calm becomes the only acceptable channel, calm becomes a muzzle. There is a small set of clarifying questions that function like extra rays. They are not attacks, they are light switches. What exactly do you mean by that? Who specifically said that? According to what agreement? When did we decide this? What happens if I say no? By when do you need an answer? What part is your request and what part is my choice? You don't have to weaponize these. Asking them gently is enough. Patterns hate specifics. If the response to a simple request for details is irritation, deflection, or moralizing, you've learned what you needed to learn. Mirroring is a warm tool that becomes a tell when it goes cartoonish. In early love bombing, preferences bounce back at you with uncanny precision. You mention a book, it's their favorite. A movie, it changed their life. A trauma, they've lived your exact arc. A goal, they've dreamed it too. Some of that might be true. What makes it a tell is the degree and the timing. If your likes return to you before there's time to share them, or if their entire identity reconfigures to become the perfect audience for yours, ask, am I being seen or sold? Authentic connection adds new colors to your palette. Mirroring makes you feel like you're alone with your reflection. Now train your ear for the subtle frames that move responsibility. You made me feel. Hands your nervous system the job of carrying both people's feelings, and then judges you for dropping them. I'm sorry you feel that way is not an apology. It's a dismissal dressed as empathy. I'm just being honest is not a virtue if honesty is used to wound without repair. I'm only saying this because I care, asks you to accept pain as proof of love. When you hear these frames, translate them. I'm upset and want you to change as workable. You control my feelings is not. In the workplace, the microtels wear lanyards. Meetings end with no assignments because clarity creates accountability. Later, the fog is used to blame. As per our conversation appears in emails about conversations that never happened. Credit migrates quietly in group settings. Misses migrate loudly in Wangan corners. The word alignment gets repeated until you accept that alignment means unanimity with one person. Watch for the calendar invite with no agenda and a title that implies crisis. Urgency will be used to bypass your prep and then used against you for being unprepared. Write down decisions with dates and subject lines you can search. If that habit irritates people, notice who and when. If you want a simple way to measure the water you're swimming in, try 3 counters in your head. The first is the confusion index. Do you leave a conversation clearer about next steps or foggier about your worth? Count how often fog wins. The second is the reversal count. When you raise a specific issue, how often does fault boomerang onto you? Count the flips. The third is pace pressure. When a decision is requested, how often is speed presented as virtue and hesitation as betrayal? Count the clocks. You're not looking for perfection, you're looking for trendlines. When the counters tilt high, you don't need a diagnosis. You need distance and a plan. Practice spotting the invoice statement. It sounds like kindness until you hear the ledger beneath it. I drove you last week. I posted about your project. I introduced you to my friend. I stayed up late to help, followed by a withdrawal request you did not agree to repay. Healthy reciprocity is negotiated. Manipulation presents the bill after the meal. Your detection line is internal. Was there a clear agreement about repayment? Was this a gift or a contract I never signed? If the answer is, I don't know, say so aloud and watch the reaction. One more pattern lives in the pronouns. Notice when we appears. We don't talk to them. We don't share that. We're not that kind of family. We don't air dirty laundry. We agreed. Sometimes we means solidarity. In manipulative dynamics, we is a rope. If you ask, who is we? And the answer becomes about loyalty rather than specifics. The pronoun was chosen to hijack your identity. It's okay to step out of a we that was assigned to you. Now, a brief practice you can do even while you're watching this. Recall a recent conversation that left you uneasy. In one sentence, write what was said. In another, write what was done. If those 2 sentences do not match, you've located the gap. Add one more line. What changed in the room when you asked a question or said, no? Did warmth drop? Did pace spike? Did the topic drift? Did a joke appear? Did moral appear? That change is your microtel. You don't have to fix anything yet. Naming is the action. I'll give you a few simple translations to carry into your next week. When you hear, why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? Translate it to, I don't want to engage the substance. When you hear, if you loved me, you would. Translate it to, I'm trading on your values to get my outcome. When you hear, we all remember it differently. Translate it to, I wanted to make facts optional. When you hear, you always, translate it to, I want a permanent label to avoid a specific repair. When you hear, opportunities don't come twice, translate it to, I need your speed to outrun your scrutiny. When you hear, I'm just being honest, Translate it to, I'm prioritizing expression over impact. The point of translation isn't to win a debate, it's to keep your compass from spinning. As you practice, remember that not every misstep is a manipulation. People joke badly and apologize. People misremember and correct themselves. People get defensive and then circle back. The tell is not the presence of a behavior once. It's the refusal to adjust when the behavior is named. A healthy person will treat your feedback as valuable data. A manipulative pattern will treat your feedback as the problem to be solved by changing you, silencing you, rushing you, or guilt-marking you until you stop bringing data. If your body has been whispering at you for months, let this chapter give you language. You are not imagining the quick pivots, the edits, the pressure clocks, the halo words, the sugar-stung compliments, the disappearing posts, the gathering witnesses, the doorframe arguments, the calm voice that makes you the only storm. You're seeing the subtitles now. In the case studies ahead, you'll watch these patterns at full scale, in meeting rooms, on first dates, around kitchen tables, and you'll hear in real time how to name them without getting trapped in their rhythm. For now, keep the 3 counters. Ask the Ux-Gray questions, translate the common frames, and remember the single skill that changes everything. Notice what is done, not just what is said. Chapter 3. Case Studies, Workplace, Dating, Family. If you want, I can adapt any of these into a storyboard sheet with frame-by-frame art notes and exact motion timings. We're leaving theory and walking into rooms you recognize. The goal here is not to perform drama, but to make patterns unmistakable when the stakes are ordinary and high at the same time. As you listen, keep asking yourself one question. What is being attempted by the words and the timing? Not just what is being said. Picture a mid-morning check-in at work. You arrive with a notebook and a quiet confidence because you sent the Q4 draft yesterday at 3:14 p.m. The manager opens with an easy smile and says, "I never got your email." You answer, "It went out yesterday afternoon." Subject line, "KQ4 plan, attachment included." The smile thins. You're getting defensive, Maya. This attitude makes collaboration hard. You feel the tilt but stay steady. I'm referring to the document and the deadline. The manager leans back. I'm starting to feel targeted by these accusations. After all the mentorship I've given you, this is the thanks I get. The meeting moves on, except nothing actually moves. Later that day, in front of the team, the manager tosses out, "Some people can't manage their tone," and the room stiffens for a second before everyone pretends to be fine. You finish your day with a familiar headache and an unfamiliar doubt. Did you send that file? Now rewind and listen again with a slow ear. The first move was an erasure of verifiable reality. I never got your email. The second move targeted your personhood rather than the topic. You're getting defensive, which shifts the conversation from a file to your character. The third move reversed the roles. I'm starting to feel targeted, which makes your attempt at accountability sound like an attack. The fourth move dangled indebtedness. After all the mentorship I've given you, a guilt hook that attempts to invoice gratitude for silence. The fifth move, some people can't manage their tone, is negging disguised as feedback, delivered publicly to make dissent costly. And threaded through all of it is information control, because if the file can be made to disappear in perception, the facts become optional. What you do next isn't about winning a verbal duel. It's about restoring reality and refusing the maze. You sit down and write a brief email that would look ordinary to a stranger. Subject, Q4 draft, sent 10/12/3:14 p.m. Hi Hiname. Following up on our check-in today. As agreed on 10/12, I sent the Q4 draft at 3:14 p.m., reattached here. Please confirm receipt and next steps. Best Mia. There is no sarcasm, no performance, just a timestamp and a request. If the situation has a history, you include a line timeline in the body. not a manifesto. If the meeting involved others, you politely CC the colleague responsible for next steps, not the whole company. Then you practice the sentence that keeps you out of character court the next time it gets heated. I'm going to stay with the deliverable. If we need a separate conversation about tone, I'm available to schedule one. If you are told that your summary emails make people feel policed, you respond, I find written summaries help me do accurate work. I'll continue using them. You do not argue about feelings you cannot control. You document, you narrow the scope, and if the pattern persists, you escalate with a short, factual record rather than a bag of emotions the other person can weaponize. And if the negging continues in public, you have a single sentence ready for meetings. I'd like feedback on my work to be specific and delivered offline. Is there a concrete example we can address now? You're not a hero. You are a calm archivist of reality who knows that clarity is not aggression. Take that stance with you as we walk into a date where the air smells like roses and the room feels like the future. The first night with Alex is cinematic. I've never felt this with anyone, Alex says, hands warm around yours. I already told my sister about you. Weekend trip to Big Sur. Your phone blooms with texts on the ride home. Could stare at you forever. We're the same kind of weird. Why wait when you know? 3 days later, the compliments acquire edges. You're stunning, Alex says. You'd be unreal if you changed your hair. You blink. That's not a compliment. Alex's smile doesn't budge. I'm just being honest. The next week you request a slower tempo. Dinner. Not a weekend away. A few days between hangs. You're paranoid, Alex replies. I'm offering you everything, and you're scared of happiness. When you say you'll take a beat, a message arrives. You're emotionally abusing me by withholding affection. Your chest tightens. You imagine the easiest path. Say yes to stop the storm. And you feel the part of you that was starving for this attention reaching out. Step outside the scene and say the words you learned earlier. The first act was pace pressure dressed as destiny. The second act was a sugar-coated dagger. The third act attempted to turn your boundary into a moral failing using the language of harm. None of this means Alex is a cartoon villain. It means a pattern is running that only slows down if you do. You text back, not to negotiate your worth but to set tempo. I'm enjoying getting to know you. I don't make big commitments quickly. I'm keeping my current pace. You don't explain your trauma history. You don't submit a report on fear. You don't offer a debate about semantics. When the dagger reappears, relax. It's a joke. You're sensitive. You answer. That's an insult. Don't speak about my body like that. If it happens again, I'll end the date. You leave if it happens again. You tell a friend what is happening, and you share a live location for the next meets, not because paranoia is noble, but because secrecy feeds confusion. If the love sonnet switches into moral theater, if you loved me, you would trust me, you reply. I care about you, and I'm choosing what's sustainable for me. If that doesn't work for you, I understand. If the phone keeps flooding at 2 a.m., you mute or block without apology. If gifts arrive at your door you didn't ask for, you do not accept the invoice hidden inside them. You thank and return or donate, and you keep the pace that lets your nervous system breathe. Notice how little you argued and how much you chose. Notice that you didn't try to teach a class. You set a policy. That is the difference between a boundary and a plea. Now come home for the case that hurts in a different place. It's Friday night and your parent calls with a familiar softness that carries a weight. After all we've done for you, they begin. You can't come for the third weekend in a row. You answer with the sentence you practiced. I love you, and I'm not available this weekend. There's a pause. then a sigh that stretches too long. So now your partner controls you. You say, "I won't discuss my partner." The sigh turns into history. "We sacrificed for you. We put our lives on hold, and this is how you repay us." A sibling text pings. You're tearing the family apart. Everyone's exhausted by your boundaries. The next morning, a relative posts a quote about selfishness on a family thread. You stare at your phone and feel yourself collapsing into the old posture. Maybe if you just show up, the storm will pass. Maybe the path of least resistance is love. Walk the map, not the guilt. The first sentence was a barbed halo dressed as gratitude. The second was triangulation, an attempt to recruit your partner into the courtroom. The third was a rewrite of love as a ledger. The fourth was the "we rope everyone," an anonymous jury that never seems to produce names. You return to the only ground that won't move. "I love you, and I'm not available this weekend. If you bring my partner into this, I will end the call. If you criticize my decision again, I'll end the call." You're not cruel. You are specific. When the criticism repeats, you say, "I'm ending the call now," and then you end it. Later, you write a short message that reduces scope creep. "I'm available on the second Sunday of each month from 2 to 5. I won't attend events planned without checking my schedule. If plans change last minute, I may decline." You do not litigate the entire family history. You set hours. When the sibling texts, "We're worried about you. You've changed," you reply, "I'm available to discuss how we schedule time. I'm not available for conversations about my character." If screenshots of your private messages start to circulate, you do not join the thread to defend yourself. You keep your conversation one-to-one or decline entirely, because group chats are often mazes designed to harvest your reactivity. If a relative guilt quotes scripture or culture at you, you can acknowledge the value and still refuse the hook. "I hear what that means to you. I'm making this choice anyway." If you need to, you write your own holiday policy and send it in the fall, not on the day of the event. You call it a policy on purpose because families understand policies even when they pretend not to. Policies move the conversation from emotions to structures, and structures are harder to gaslight. There will be a moment in each of these rooms when you feel tempted to present your entire case, like a lawyer auditioning for a merciful judge. Resist it. The more text you send, the more surface there is to cut. The more you explain, the more opportunities you provide for drift and reversal. Your power sits in specificity, pace, and consequence. In the office, that looks like subjects, dates, and single-issue focus. In dating, that looks like tempos, body respect lines, and quiet exits when lines are crossed. In family, that looks like values paired with no time boxes and early written expectations. If you do all of this and the pattern persists, you are not failing. You are observing. You can choose distance without asking permission from the system that benefits from your closeness. As you reflect on these cases, check your body for the moment you felt the room tilt. Was it when the manager said you were defensive, when Alex called you paranoid, when your parents said you owe them? That tilt is the data you can trust. Name it privately with the icons you now own. Broken compass, Trojan horse, sugar-coated dagger, mirror maze, barbed halo. Those names keep you from arguing with fog. Then choose the one sentence that brings air back into your lungs. Let's keep this to the deliverable. I'm slowing down. Don't speak about my body. We're discussing the invoice. I love you, and I'm not available. If you find yourself repeating a sentence with no consequence, add the consequence and act on it once. If it happens again, I'll leave. If the topic returns, I'll end the call. If we can't stay on the issue, I'll follow up in writing. These are not punishments. They are instructions to yourself. Boundaries are self-governance, not remote control for other people. You might worry that speaking like this will make you cold. The opposite is true. Boundaries make room for warmth that isn't coerced. Clarity makes room for affection that isn't bought. The less time you spend in mazes, the more energy you have for people and projects that don't require a defense attorney in your pocket. And if you mess up, if you over-explain, if you take the bait, if you apologize for bleeding, it's all right. Patterns are loud and you're human. Step back to the map and try again next time with one sentence less than before. If you recognized yourself on both sides of these scripts, that's honest. All of us have used small versions of these moves under stress. The measure of health is not the absence of missteps, it's the presence of repair. If someone adjusts when you name the problem, that's data. If they escalate when you name the problem, that's data too. In the next chapter, we will turn all of this into practice lines and protective systems you can deploy without adrenaline. For now, let these stories sit with you. Let the voices you heard play back in your mind with new subtitles. The moment you can narrate what was attempted, you're already out of the maze. Chapter 4. Defense Protocols and Boundary Scripts. Tonight we move from theory to practice. Up to now you've learned how to spot tactics and name them. Now we'll build what you do next, the moves you can deploy under pressure without thinking. Defense protocols are pre-decided behaviors that protect your time, energy, and dignity. Boundary scripts are the exact words you use so your limits are unmistakable. When manipulation turns up the heat, you won't improvise. You'll execute. Think of this as installing a series of switches you can flip in sequence. Pause, verify, limit, disengage, document, escalate. The more you rehearse these switches, the calmer you stay, and the more predictable your responses become. To you, not to the person trying to destabilize you. The first protocol is the reset. When you feel your body flood, jaw tight, chest hot, thoughts racing, you name what's happening and slow the exchange. The internal line is, my body is in defense, I'll buy time. The external line is simple, I'm going to pause and think. I'll get back to this later. If someone pushes, no, answer now, you repeat. I don't make decisions on the spot. I'll follow up when I'm ready. You are not asking for permission. You are announcing a boundary around your decision-making. Pressure is the tool. Time is your counter-tool. The second protocol is the mirror check. Manipulators thrive on fog, shaken memory, reframed reality, manufactured doubt. Your move is to separate verifiable fact from interpretation. The internal line is, what is the observable event? The external line is, here's what I saw and heard. Yesterday at 3 p.m., you said X. The text says Y. I'm going to proceed based on that. If they pivot to insulting your perception, you're crazy, you're overreacting. Your boundary script is, I'm open to discussing facts. I'm not open to insults. If the insults continue, I'm ending this conversation. Then do it once. The power isn't in the warning. It's in the follow-through. The third protocol is the information economy. In manipulative dynamics, oversharing is a liability. You don't owe anyone your motives, your private life, or your full rationale. Jade, justify, argue, defend, explain, is the trap. Brevity is the shield. The script is, no, that doesn't work for me. If pressed, I'm not discussing my reasons. If a guilt hook appears, wow, I thought you trusted me. You keep the economy. This isn't about trust. It's about my limits. You are teaching your nervous system and the other person that no is a complete sentence clothed in calm. The fourth protocol is the broken record. This is a quiet repetition of one sentence until the conversation either aligns or ends. You choose a single line and loop it without anger. I'm not agreeing to that. If they try angles, flattery, threats, sudden emergencies, you repeat, I'm not agreeing to that. A softer variant, when you want to retain warmth, is, I hear you, and my answer is still no. The broken record is not rude, it's clarity in motion. It also denies the manipulator's favorite reward, getting you to chase your own words into an explanation they can pick apart. The fifth protocol is the channel change. You control where and how the interaction happens. If someone cornered you in a hallway, you relocate to email. If they barrage your phone, you move to scheduled calls. The script is, please put that in writing, or let's discuss this during our 2 p.m. meeting, or I don't take work calls after 6 p.m. Channel changes remove the surprise factor and create a record. If they insist on keeping it off the record, your line is, I only discuss decisions in documented channels. You don't need to say why. The existence of a log is its own deterrent. The sixth protocol is tone control. You are responsible for what you accept, not for how they feel. If a conversation crosses your standard, raised voice, mocking, slurs, you mark it and set a condition. The script is, I'm willing to continue once the tone is respectful, or I'm ending this call now. We can reschedule when we're both calm. If name-calling begins, treat it as a fire alarm, not a puzzle to solve. You exit with, stop. This is not acceptable. We'll revisit later if the approach changes. Removing yourself is not surrender. It's refusing to be trained by abuse. The seventh protocol is the topic guard. Manipulators push hot-button subjects to destabilize you or extract advantage. You decide what is and isn't discussable. The script is, I'm not discussing that topic, or that's personal, and I keep personal matters private. If they reintroduce it later with a smile, just curious. You keep it short, same answer. If they frame your boundary as secrecy, you neutralize the frame. It's not secrecy, it's privacy. The topic guard closes one door so you can keep the rest of the house functional. The eighth protocol is the clock. Time is part of your boundary. Scarcity is their lever. Scheduling is yours. When a request shows up with artificial urgency, ask, when is the real deadline? If it's still too tight, say, I'm not available within that time frame, and offer nothing else. At work, if someone routinely drops last-minute tasks on you, your script is, please send requests by O-time with scope and deadline. I won't be able to handle unscheduled work. If they escalate to higher-ups to force you, you loop to documentation. For clarity, I'm confirming the timeline and my current commitments, and copy the stakeholders who need to see the trade-offs. The ninth protocol is proximity and space. Physical boundary violations are addressed with straight lines, not metaphors. The script is, step back, followed by stepping aside yourself. If contact continues, escalate to, do not touch me, and leave the environment. In public or social settings, if someone blocks your exit with conversation, use, I'm leaving now, and walk. You never owe anyone an apology for ending a physical interaction that feels unsafe or intrusive. Your body is not a negotiation. The 10th protocol is the social circle filter. Triangulation is a common tool. They said you're the problem, designed to recruit your panic. Your counter is to remove the triangle. The script is, let's bring them into the conversation so we can all align, or please don't speak on their behalf. I'll talk to them directly. If the person refuses and keeps relaying messages, you shut the channel. I'm not responding to third-hand messages. Your goal is to eliminate the rumor supply chain, not to win a whisper war. The 11th protocol is for Darvo, deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. When you name a harm and the other person casts themselves as the injured party, stay with the original point. The script is, I'm naming what happened and how it affected me. I won't accept this being reframed as my wrongdoing. Offer process if you're willing. I'm open to a mediated conversation and name conditions. No insults, factual focus, equal time. If they continue to reverse roles, exit. This isn't productive. I'm done for now. You do not litigate your right to name reality. The 12th protocol is the offer box. Instead of defending against a demand, you reframe it into a clear offer with terms. The script is, here's what I'm available for. 30 minutes on Thursday focused on A and B. If that works, confirm by end of day, Wednesday. Anything outside those terms is not your problem to solve. This technique short-circuits endless negotiation and places responsibility on the other person to step into a defined box, or not. The 13th protocol is the commitment fence. In early relationships or new collaborations, manipulators push for speed, keys, passwords, money, proof of love. Your pace is your boundary. The script is, I move slowly with commitments, and you tie it to observable milestones. After 3 months of consistent behavior, we can revisit. If they say, if you loved me, you'd do it now, you say. Healthy commitments aren't tests. My answer is no. You never trade integrity for proximity. The 14th protocol is the credit ledger. At work, some people siphon credit, blur authorship, or rewrite history. Your defense is contemporaneous documentation and public clarity. Before you help, you write, here's what I will deliver, and by when. After you help, you write, delivered X on Y. Next steps are Z, and you include relevant teammates. If someone presents your work as theirs, you don't attack. You add the missing accuracy. To clarify, I authored the first draft and the analysis. Thanks to X for the final edits. The script is factual, not emotional. The goal is accurate records, not revenge. The 15th protocol is money. Financial manipulation runs on urgency, shame, and vagueness. Your scripts, I don't lend money, I'm not a cosigner, and all financial agreements go in writing. If you choose to assist, you define limits. I can contribute this amount once, and you refuse payment plans you must police. If someone says, it's just for a week, your line is, my rule is no loans. The word rule helps you avoid person-to-person negotiation. You're simply applying a standard. The 16th protocol is digital perimeter. You decide the terms of contact and change them as needed. Your scripts, I don't respond to messages after you time. Keep work communication on email, and stop contacting me on personal accounts. If harassment escalates multiple numbers, fake profiles, you move to enforcement. Do not contact me again. Further messages will be documented and reported. Then you block, archive, and if appropriate, file reports. Do not debate a digital boundary, configure it. The 17th protocol is disclosure control. Manipulators harvest secrets to use as leverage. Your counter is to remove leverage by being selective and by preemptively neutralizing shame. Your internal script is, what information helps me here? Your external script is, I don't share that, or that's private. If someone threatens to reveal something to coerce you, you detach from the bait. Do what you need to do. My answer doesn't change. Power returns when consequences don't buy your consent. The 18th protocol is the apology filter. A manipulative apology rushes to let's move on while avoiding repair. Your script is, I hear the words. I'm looking for changed behavior. If they ask, so we're good? You say, we're not good. We're improving if actions change. If they declare you unforgiving, you repeat, forgiveness is not the same as access. Access is earned with consistency. Never let an apology become a key that opens every door. The 19th protocol is social pressure resistance. Group settings can be used to force compliance. Your script is, I'm not making that decision here, or I'll follow up privately. If a crowd laughs at your boundary, don't argue with a room. Speak to the consequence. I'm ending this conversation. Then leave. Later, you decide who in that room remains in your circle. Not everyone who witnessed the moment earns a place in your life after it. The 20th protocol is the escalation ladder. You predefine 3 rungs. On the first violation, you name and set a condition. That joke is not okay. Please stop. On the second, you add a consequence you control. If it happens again, I'll leave. On the third, you act without warning. You leave, you block, you file, you report. The line that holds the ladder together is, I don't repeat myself more than twice. Predictability is a kindness to you and a limit to them. Now let's shape the language you can actually use in common scenarios. When a coworker tries to transfer their task to you with urgency, I just can't get to this. Can you handle it by end of day? You say, I won't be able to take that on. If it's critical, please ask our manager to reassign priorities, and you stop there. If a manager uses guilt, we really need a team player. You respond, I am a team player within agreed scope. If scope is changing, let's document it and deprioritize accordingly. If someone pushes you to stay late habitually, your line is, I'm not available after 6. Let's plan within business hours. Repetition is your friend. Embellishment is their friend. With family, if an elder weaponizes obligation, after all I've done, you won't come. You say, I love you. I won't be attending. I'll call you Sunday. If the counter-strike is character assassination, you've become selfish. You don't litigate your character. You stabilize your plan. I'll call you Sunday. If a relative spreads stories about you to pull you back in, you refuse the bait. I'm not discussing rumors. If you have a concern, talk to me directly. If they refuse that standard, you reduce contact frequency and length without fanfare. Distance is not punishment, it's ventilation. In dating and intimate partnerships, if early love bombing shows up, gifts, constant contact, vows of forever, you slow the tempo. I like getting to know you. I'm not making big commitments quickly. When jealousy is framed as love, I just care so much. That's why I check your phone. You mark the behavior, not the justification. Checking my phone is not acceptable. Don't do it again. If name-calling or threats occur, you treat it as a structural failure. No relationship of mine includes insults. I'm leaving this conversation, and you actually leave. If the cycle repeats, you end the relationship with one line. This dynamic doesn't work for me. I'm done. You don't hold a courtroom. You make a decision. Online, if someone floods your DMs after you've declined an invitation, the script is, do not contact me again. If they create new accounts, you document timestamps, and you escalate, report, block, inform trusted people. Avoid sending any final explanatory message. Explanations are oxygen. If a group chat turns hostile, you write, this isn't a fit for me. I'm leaving the chat, and you leave. You can't control how they react. You can control access points. When you encounter gaslighting, you're imagining things that never happened. You ground yourself with concrete anchors. You state, I'm confident in what I saw and decided, and you end the exchange. If they say, if you hang up, you prove I'm right, you decline the trap. I'm ending this now, and you end the call. The fear of appearing rude is the leash. Cut it. Respect is not noise tolerance. After any boundary action, you run the debrief protocol. You ask yourself 3 questions. What was the trigger? Which script worked or didn't? What consequence will I apply next time? Then you do nervous system care. Walk, water, food, sleep, the basics that make your brain available again. You send any necessary follow-up in writing while the facts are fresh. To summarize, I said X. You responded Y. I ended the conversation at Z. We can revisit under these conditions. This is not drama. It's clean bookkeeping. If you're dealing with someone who uses silence as punishment, your move is to refuse the training. The script is, I'm available to talk when you're ready to be respectful, and you continue living. You don't chase. You don't apologize for boundaries, and you don't overcorrect to buy peace. If you're dealing with smear campaigns, your public line is neutral and consistent. I don't discuss private matters. Here's what I can say, one factual sentence if necessary. You tell the truth once to the right people, and let time do the rest. Overexposure is their tactic. Your tactic is disciplined signal. In professional settings where harassment shades into policy violations, you translate your lived experience into institutional language and channels. The script is, I'm reporting a pattern of behavior that interferes with my ability to work, and you list times, dates, quotes, witnesses. You ask for specific remedies. I'm requesting a different reporting line, or I'm requesting written commitments about scope and contact hours. You avoid emotive adjectives. You lean on observable events. If internal channels fail, you evaluate external ones. Your safety and livelihood are legitimate reasons to escalate. There will be moments when you're tempted to negotiate what is not negotiable for you. In those moments you return to the smallest possible script. No, stop. Don't leave. Enough. This conversation is over. You say it once, calmly, and you act. Part of maturing your defense is reducing the amount of language between your boundary and your action. Over-explaining creates escape hatches. Brevity closes them. Practice is how these words become yours. Choose 3 scripts that match your common situations and repeat them out loud until they sound boring. Boring is good. Boring means your nervous system doesn't spike when you say them. Record yourself saying, I'm not available for that, 10 times in a row. Record, listen, repeat. If your voice wavers, slow the pace and lower the volume slightly. Authority is quiet and steady, not loud and fast. Expect some relationships to change as your boundaries get clearer. People who benefited from your lack of limits will call your boundary cold, selfish, or controlling. Don't debate labels. Live your life. People who care about your well-being will adapt, even if they need time. If someone consistently refuses your conditions and punishes then no, your protocol isn't to find a better script. It's to build distance, up to and including no contact. The line is, our interactions are unhealthy for me. I'm stepping back, and then you step back. Each protocol and script you've heard in this chapter is a tool, not a performance. You don't need perfect phrasing to deserve respect. You need consistency, consequences, and a willingness to be misunderstood by people committed to misunderstanding you. When pressure rises, you'll fall to the level of your training. Train now. Pick your phrases. Memorize them. Use them. And remember, boundaries aren't about controlling other people. They're about controlling access to you. Your time, your attention, your body, your peace. These are finite assets. Guard them like they matter, because they do. Chapter 5. Reflective Exercises, a Red Flag Checklist. This chapter is a mirror and a map. It invites you to slow down, notice what is true in your body and your story, and then translate those signals into firm, practical choices. You will move between reflection and recognition. First clarifying your inner landscape, then learning to spot external danger signs before they become disasters. Go gently, tell the truth, and remember that one honest paragraph on paper can change the trajectory of a month. Begin with a grounding exercise that sets the tone for all that follows. Sit where you can be undisturbed for a few minutes and bring attention to your breath without trying to fix it. Name out loud what you're working on. I am taking my experience seriously. If anxiety rises, Imagine placing it beside you like a backpack rather than wearing it. The goal is not perfect calm. The goal is enough steadiness to look clearly at your patterns. Build a brief personal timeline to see the shape of your recent relationships and entanglements, whether romantic, professional, familial, or online. Write the names or roles of the last 3 people who mattered to you and mark the first moment you felt unusually excited, hopeful, or seen. Mark the first moment you felt confused, small, or on edge. Add any event when boundaries blurred, truth bent, or you began rationalizing what you would not advise a friend to accept. Circle the transitions where the energy flipped from warm to cold, or from attentive to critical. When you read this back, you are not judging yourself. You are studying the choreography. Use your body as a barometer. Recall a specific interaction that left you stirred up and replay only the final 60 seconds of that moment in your mind. Notice where tension sits. Jaw, chest, throat, stomach, or hands. Give each area a simple rating from 0 to 10, not to dramatize but to capture data. Write one sentence that begins, "My body knew something was off when..." Repeat this with 3 different scenes across a week of interactions. Over time, you will see which physical signals reliably precede confusion or capitulation, and you can learn to treat those signals as early alerts rather than as noise. Clarify your boundaries by mapping them to values. On a fresh page, choose 3 values that matter to you right now: dignity, privacy, honesty, rest, or any others that feel alive. For each value, describe in practical terms what it looks like on an average Tuesday. If honesty is central, perhaps it means people can bring you bad news without fear. If dignity is central, perhaps it means you are not mocked in front of others. Then note the minimum conditions you need to protect that value and the first sign that it is being compromised. This turns abstractions into guardrails you can actually use. Audit language, because language reveals loyalties. Gather 5 exact sentences you have heard recently that left you off balance. Write them verbatim, including the tone if you can. Next to each line, write what you felt in the first 3 seconds after hearing it: tightness, shame, confusion, adrenaline. Then translate the sentence into its possible function. Your overreacting might function to erase your perception. If you loved me, you would. Might function to push you past a boundary. Everyone says you're difficult might function to isolate you through manufactured consensus. Finally, craft a response line you can say without heat, such as, "I hear that you disagree. My perception stands," or "My answer is no, and I won't argue about it." Practice saying your line aloud until your mouth knows it without help. Complete a pattern portrait to understand your personal openings to manipulation. Describe times when you crave intensity, validation, or certainty, and how those cravings have steered choices in the past. Note any tendency to over-explain, to rescue, to avoid short-term discomfort, or to prove your goodness. None of these make you weak. They make you human. The point is to see how predictable impulses can be exploited, and to plan alternate moves, pausing before explaining, tolerating a few seconds of silence, or requiring written follow-up before agreeing to rushed requests. Design a default pause protocol so that urgency no longer hijacks you. Choose a simple sequence you will run anytime you feel pressured. Step away from the screen or room. Take 3 slow breaths. Write 1 sentence about what is being asked, and name out loud the smallest next step you can agree to without risk. When you return, communicate the pause openly. "I make decisions after I think. I'll get back to you tomorrow," or "I don't agree to changes on the spot." By rehearsing this script when calm, you reduce the odds of freezing or fawning when stakes feel high. Draft a small, specific safety plan that fits your life. List the names of 2 people you can contact when something feels off and decide how you will reach them. Identify the physical places where you can go to get distance, even briefly. Note what documents, passwords, or essentials you would need accessible if you had to create space quickly. You might never use this plan. Its purpose is to give your nervous system proof that options exist. Write a compassionate reconstruction of one confusing event. Tell the story in 3 passes. First, write it as you lived it, with your genuine hopes and fears included. Second, write it as a camera would record it, with observable behaviors only. Third, write it from the vantage point of a friend who loves your well-being more than your comfort. This triple rendering strengthens your ability to sort facts from fog and to hold yourself with respect while correcting course. Close the reflection section with a commitment line that fits in your mouth and your calendar. Examples include, I do not negotiate my boundaries in the middle of a conflict. I reply to guilt trips with silence. Or, I leave when my body says leave. Choose one sentence and test it for 1 week in small, real moments. Report back to your own notebook honestly. Iteration is strength. Now move to recognition. The red flag checklist that follows is written as narrative so you can hear it like a conversation, but you can still treat each paragraph as an item to notice, track, and weigh against your values. Red flags are patterns, not isolated moments. A single occurrence invites curiosity. Repetition demands decisions. Be alert to fast-forward intimacy. If someone insists you are uniquely compatible within days, mirrors your tastes too perfectly, pushes for exclusivity before trust has formed, or sketches a glittering future to bypass present reality, you may be experiencing intensity rather than intimacy. The pace itself becomes information. Healthy bonds allow for discovery, not foreclosure. Watch the friction they show around your no-go-way. Early pressure around small boundaries. 1 more drink, 1 more hour, 1 more photo, 1 more secret. Often forecasts how bigger boundaries will be treated. If your clear no is greeted with sulking, anger, persuasion disguised as care, or a sudden withdrawal of warmth, you are being taught that safety requires surrender. Notice that lesson and decline it. Listen for distortions that make you mistrust your senses. Gaslighting rarely begins as a blatant claim that black is white. It begins as a gentle erasure of your memory, a joking minimization of hurtful comments, or the claim that the problem is your tone. Over time, the conversation becomes a maze where the topic keeps shifting. The definitions keep moving, and your need for clarity is framed as hostility. When words detach from events, step back and re-anchor to what you observed. Track consistency between words and actions. Promises that evaporate, apologies that reorganize nothing, sudden reversals with elaborate justifications, and cycles of idealize, criticize, reassure, repeat, create intermittent reward that feels like love, but functions like training. If you find yourself waiting for the next high to cancel the last low, you are already caught in the schedule. Consistency is care. Inconsistency is control. Notice how your world shrinks. Isolation can wear the costume of devotion. I just want more time with you. Your friends don't get us. It's better if we keep this to ourselves. Jealousy may be framed as passion and monitoring as protection. If your circle of support gets thinner, your schedule less flexible, and your privacy more perforated, autonomy is being traded for access. Pay attention to digital tells. Relentless checking of your status or location, surprise knowledge of private conversations, late-night bursts of contact followed by unexplained silence, and triangulation through social media. Liking an angst posts to provoke or posting cryptic messages that recruit sympathy are not quirks of the medium. They are strategies for surveillance and emotional leverage. Healthy partners respect your devices as extensions of your boundaries. Examine the money currents. Urgent borrowing that never resolves, guilt when you ask for clarity, subtle punishment when you spend on yourself, or a steady drift of financial decision-making away from you toward them, can signal a control strategy. In workplaces, watch for promises of opportunity tied to loyalty tests or secrecy, and for shifting compensation terms after you have already delivered. Observe how accountability lands. Everyone fails. How a person repairs matters. Beware the apology that centers their pain, the confession that doubles as a request for comfort, the tidy moral of the story that asks you to move on quickly, and the pattern where responsibility vanishes the moment consequences loom. When you raise a concern, note whether the conversation becomes a referendum on your character. If the spotlight always swivels to you, you're not in dialogue. You're in deflection. Stand for contempt and cruelty, especially the socially acceptable kinds. Mockery packaged as humor, eye rolls when you speak. Performative kindness to people with status paired with dismissiveness toward those without. And a peculiar thrill at others' misfortune reveal an orientation that will not spare you. Admiration is cheap. Respect is evidenced by how someone behaves when they are bored or inconvenienced. Treat sweeping origin stories with care. If every ex is framed as unhinged, every former colleague is jealous, and every institution is corrupt while the narrator remains the singular truth-teller, you may be hearing a myth built to preempt feedback. This does not mean their past pain isn't real. It means the reflex to externalize blame is established. Patterns in their stories are forecasts for your role if things go wrong. Name the pattern of manufactured crises. If arguments always bloom right before your big day, if holidays are reliably wrecked, if peace feels suspicious and must be punctured, drama is being used to reset attention and dominance. Chaos becomes both the proof of connection and the currency of control. Noticing this frees you to refuse the bait and continue your plans without debate. Notice how substances and anger intersect with boundaries. Regular intoxication that ushers in disrespect, property destruction framed as just frustration, threats, stalking behaviors, or intimidation are not yellow flags. They are alarm bells. Treat them as such. Safety takes precedence over understanding. Distance can be a form of kindness to yourself. Watch for erosion of identity. If your clothing, friendships, hobbies, or beliefs are steadily reshaped to fit another's preferences, and your objections are met with explanations about what's best for you, you are being authored. Respect invites you to remain a distinct person. Control edits you into a character in their story. Hold sexual autonomy as non-negotiable. Coercive bargaining, sulking after refused intimacy, stealth violations of agreements about protection, and tests of loyalty that require self-betrayal are clear signals that consent is being treated as an obstacle. Love honors your yes and your no without punishment. Recognize how children, elders, pets, and coworkers can become instruments. If care responsibilities are used to trap, manipulate schedules, or generate guilt on demand, if threats to withhold access appear, or if public reputation is leveraged to silence you, the environment is unsafe. Power that is willing to exploit the vulnerable will not protect you. Prepare for the post-boundary phase. When you set limits or exit, you may encounter a flurry of grand gestures, sudden insight, or public narratives that cast you as unstable. You might also experience covert reach-outs through mutual contacts, digital breadcrumbs designed to pull your attention, or quiet monitoring. Anticipating these tactics allows you to respond with neutrality rather than re-entry. Treat accumulation, not intensity, as your evidence standard. One dazzling day cannot pay off a debt of disrespect. Keep notes on frequency, impact, and your body's response. When the same dynamics repeat across contexts and over time, believe the pattern. Your clarity is not cruel. It is an act of stewardship for your future. Close by, returning to yourself. Read your notes aloud somewhere private and notice the sentence that makes your shoulders drop. That sentence is your next step. You do not need permission to protect your energy, your schedule, your money, your body, or your story. You may feel grief as you act. Grief is not a sign you are wrong. It is what surfaces when you stop negotiating with what harms you. If you are unsure what to do, practice the smallest boundary available today. Decline one invitation that drains you. Delay one decision that feels rushed. Delete one conversation thread that keeps pulling you back into arguments you have already resolved internally. Give yourself proof that you can move a little, and the next move will be easier to see. Finally, remember that you are building muscles, not performing a miracle. Muscles strengthen by repetition and rest. Take the next honest step, then rest. You are allowed to keep what keeps you well. Thank you for staying with me to the very end. We've covered a lot today, and if your brain feels both clearer and a bit tender, that's normal. We named the landscape, how dark psychological tactics are organized, and why they work. We practiced noticing the microdetails and language patterns that give games away. We walked through real-world scenarios at work, in dating, and inside families. And we closed the loop with defense protocols and boundary scripts, then turned the mirror toward our own habits so we can spot red flags early and respond with clarity. If you take only one thing with you, let it be this. You are not too sensitive. You're perceptive. Perception paired with skill is protection. Before we part, I want to say this explicitly. Knowledge like this is a tool. Tools can build or they can harm. Use what you learned tonight to protect consent, preserve dignity, and strengthen healthy connection, not to manipulate anyone. Our ethic here is simple: clarity, mutuality, and choice. If a tactic undermines those, it doesn't belong in your toolkit. Here's your immediate next step. Pick one boundary script from tonight, the one that felt most you, and practice it out loud 3 times before you sleep. Put it on a note in your phone so it's one tap away when you need it. Tomorrow, run the ready flag checklist on the interaction that's top of mind for you right now. Don't argue with your findings. Just observe, document, and decide if a small boundary or a big exit is the right move. Skill compounds. Start small. Start now. If this episode helped you, the most powerful way to support the work is simple. Share it with one person who could use stronger boundaries or a little validation that what they're sensing is real. Subscribing and turning on notifications means you won't miss the deep dive chapters we have coming, and leaving a quick rating or review tells the algorithm to put this in front of people who might not even know what to Google yet. That ripple matters. You'll find resources linked below: a printable ready flag checklist, the boundary scripts Watt pager, and the reflective exercise prompts from Chapter 5. Download them, save them to your Notes app, and keep them handy. If you're a manager or a therapist or a coach, feel free to share these with teams and clients. Just keep attribution and keep the ethics front and center. I also want to hear from you. In the comments, tell me which microdetail you spotted most often this week, or drop the boundary script you customize so others can learn from your language. If you have a case you want us to anonymize and analyze in a future community episode, workplace, dating, or family, submit it through the link in the description. We read them all, and your story could be the flashlight someone else needs. If you want to go deeper, our members get access to extended Q&As, scenario drills, and a living library of scripts organized by situation, hard conversations, breakups, co-parenting, and more. Membership also keeps this channel independent and ad-light, so if that's available to you, thank you. If not, your watch time, shares, and comments are already a huge contribution. A brief but important safety note. This channel is educational. It's not therapy, legal advice, or a crisis service. If tonight stirred up concern that you're not safe in a relationship or at work, prioritize safety before confrontation. Document facts, Reach out to a trusted person and consult a qualified professional in your area. Therapist, advocate, attorney, or HR partner who can support you with your specific context and laws. If you're in immediate danger, contact your local emergency services or a local crisis hotline. You deserve help, and you deserve peace. Before we close, take one breath with me. Inhale through the nose. Slow exhale through the mouth. Name one value you're taking with you. Respect, reciprocity, honesty, calm. And let that value guide your next hard conversation. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to leave. If you're new here, welcome to the Dark Psych Unmasked. Around here we don't feed fear. We build skill. Subscribe if that aligns with you, and if it doesn't genuinely, take the tools and go thrive. Either way, thank you for trusting me with your attention and your stories. I see the courage it takes to examine patterns, especially when they're close to home. I'm your host, and this has been today's deep dive. Be clear, hold, be kind, be hard to manipulate. I'll see you in the next one.